The live-action Snow White and the Seven Dwarves is set to release in 2024. However, out of all the live-action Disney remakes, this one has the most controversy surrounding it. The controversy is so bad that mainstream media outlets are even reporting on it, saying that this is nothing but a PR nightmare for Disney. So, let's explore why this movie has so much controversy surrounding it. In June of 2021, Rachel Zegler from Steven Spielberg's West Side Story was announced to play Snow White in Disney's upcoming live-action remake. This initially sparked backlash because the casting of Rachel Zegler goes against the original source material. In the original Grimm Brothers fairy tale, Snow White was named what she was because her skin was quote-unquote as white as snow. Were some people genuine racists in their initial criticisms? Yes, but to say that everyone who criticized Rachel Zegler's casting because she is Latina and doesn't fit the role as racist does absolutely nothing. However, in the grand scheme of things, the idea of a Latina playing someone whose skin is white as snow isn't the biggest controversy that this movie is facing. So, in January of 2022, Peter Dinklage was doing an interview on Marc Maron's podcast where he was upset about the inclusion of dwarves in the live-action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. I'm not joking. Peter Dinklage said, quote, "I was a little taken aback when they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White. You're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, and you're still making that fucking backwards story about seven dwarfs living in a cave together. What the fuck are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. If you tell the story of Snow White with the most fucked up progressive spin on it, let's do it. All in," end quote. Disney responded to this criticism by promising to take the dwarves in a new direction. What was shown was 7 different people of various races, genders, and heights in these leaked set photos. Now, Disney initially denied the validity of these photographs, but that didn't do too much to quell the backlash, given that Disney had promised to take the dwarves in a new direction after Peter Dinklage's comments. What we have now is 7 magical creatures that aren't dwarves. The backlash comes from the fact that the dwarves are the most iconic part of the 1937 movie. Disney still sells merchandise with the dwarves and even makes rides in their parks featuring them. Everyone has a favorite dwarf from the 1937 Snow White movie. Me personally, my favorite dwarf was always a toss-up between Grumpy and Sleepy. The lead actress of the live-action remake has not hid her hatred of the 1937 classic at all in interviews. At the D23 Expo, that's Disney's conference for investors, her and Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot, however you pronounce her name, I don't know, were giving an interview with Variety on the red carpet, and here's what they had to say.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
she's not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
But when Zegler was on Jimmy Kimmel, she had this to say about Disney and the Snow White ride at Disneyland.
I mean, It's one of the original. I'm a really big Disney fan. I grew up at the Disney parks. My parents took me every summer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
So it's like, it's a part of my upbringing. It's my favorite thing. So it's just one of those things that comes with the territory.
Well, then if you love...
It's like she says one thing on a late night show, but another thing in interviews with other outlets. At that same D23 Expo where Rachel Zegler proclaimed that she didn't like the 1937 Snow White movie, she doubled down. In an interview with Extra, she proclaimed that the prince was a stalker.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie.
Right.
Andrew Burnap, great dude.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
The big takeaway from this is that there might not even be a prince in the movie. So, the live-action Snow White might not have a prince, it doesn't have dwarves, so why is this movie being made at all? During the actors' strike of 2023, she said this about streaming residuals for the live-action Snow White movie.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Well, as we brought up, why is anyone going to watch this movie at all if there isn't going to be a prince and the dwarves aren't even in it? Are you going to watch the live-action Snow White when it comes out to theaters or streaming? Or are you skipping it entirely? Me personally, I am skipping this and not having any regrets about that decision.
Hey!